Thank you everyone for joining us to another episode of Talks with Satu, the weekly Twitter spaces hosted by the Money on Chain community. I am your host, Art of Thomas, and we are very happy to have another chance to talk with someone that is directly involved with building the Bitcoin economy and to bring forth the future that we would like to see happen. So today we have a very special guest that I am super excited to talk to. We have Elizabeth Olsen, head of growth of Xverse. One of the, it's a Bitcoin wallet that I think is positioned itself in a very good place to at least to try to become one of the dominant wallets in the Bitcoin space, which is something that I think is a space that is currently missing at the moment. So I'm sure we're gonna have a wonderful discussion about what all of this entails. So Elizabeth, once again, thank you for joining us. And if you'd like to give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself and who you are, that would be wonderful.
Hey, sure. Thanks for having me. Also, shout out, hey, Rocky, I see you. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, so a little bit about me. I'm head of growth at Xverse, and really more about me. I'll share more about Xverse. Xverse is a Bitcoin wallet, and we're positioning ourselves as specifically as a Bitcoin wallet for Web3. That means that we're enabling not just functionalities like payments. So not only can you send and receive Bitcoin and store it in a safe way, but we're also enabling things like DeFi. We're supporting Ordinals, BRC20 tokens. You may have heard about these. And actually, we were the first Bitcoin wallet that enabled users to use a web browser and connect to apps and sign transactions, just like you would on wallets from other chains. For example, like Ethereum, you have MetaMask and Solana, Phantom. Now you can actually do this with Bitcoin. Yeah, we're enabling a lot of really interesting Web3, so to speak, functionalities and advanced features, and ultimately looking to onboard the next billion users to Bitcoin with a really user-friendly experience. The wallet is available not only as a Chrome browser extension on desktop, but also in iOS and Android. So it's pretty easy to download and access by anyone. And you can think of us like a Bitcoin super wallet with all of these different functionalities and enabling access to not only developments happening on the Bitcoin layer one, but also Bitcoin layer twos like stacks and potentially soon the Lightning network.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, I've been using Xworks. I've been testing it. One of the things that I love about it is the UI. I think it's great. I think you did a wonderful job. Well, the team. Now, before we head into more in depth into Xworks, I want to remind the audience that this is an interactive space. If you have any questions, if you want to request the mic to ask your question, or you want to type it in, that only makes the spaces more engaging and better. So please take this opportunity to make all the questions that you want. And now, I also one of the things I really like about doing these spaces is not only to get to know the product, but also to get to know the people behind the product. Elizabeth, I just wanted to ask a little bit of what was your journey into experts? Like, where did you start it and why did you decide to join the Bitcoin space and dedicate yourself to it full time?
So I actually come from completely different sector. I come from the luxury sector. So I'm relatively new to Web3. With that said, I've been a fan of Bitcoin for some time. And I was in the luxury space at Steinway and Sons for many years, and then Sotheby's auction house, or as overseeing marketing for sales coming out of the New York region. So handbags, luxury, jewels, books, manuscripts, street wine, spirits, all these different, really some of the world's most coveted artifacts. And a lot of them had digital NFT twins tied to them. People could track the provenance. You could have a digital access and proof of ownership to your physical items. And in some cases, we could scan the items and they would be digitized. So, for example, we had some sketches of some watches done by a watchmaker. So we scanned those, and it basically became its own product as an NFT. And also at the time, there were the Sotheby's metaverse was launched and other really exciting things were happening. One of my sales was the Constitution, the US Constitution. And then at the time, they a group called the Constitution DAO wanted to decentralize it. So they actually were able to raise funds to try and purchase the Constitution. And unfortunately, they were outbid in the end. But I was just starting to see a lot of these really interesting use cases in the Web3 space and have that kind of exposure. And the market cap was hitting about $2 trillion. So it was a really exciting time. A lot of things were being built. And I just finished my MBA and was looking to get into the tech space and do this pivot. And a recruiter reached out and said, "Hey, have you considered crypto?" And ended up landing me an interview with Ken and at Xverse, where I am now. And I think it's going to be you're at the right place at a startup when the question you're asking yourself around the product is like, how does this not already exist? How does the best wallet, Bitcoin wallet user experience, how does that not already exist? How are we not already supporting what's being built on Bitcoin? Why is this being taken to other chains? And when all the capital and Bitcoin is a reserve currency, it's the largest and most secure blockchain and place to store humanity's most valuable digital artifacts. Why is this going to other chains and how can we bring this back to Bitcoin? So I thought it was this really interesting, interesting place to get started. And I see Bitcoin as the luxury chain coming from the luxury space. Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency used as a reserve currency. So this is ultimately where I see a lot of the functionality taking off. And starting in a wallet, you have a lot of exposure to everything that's happening in the Web3 space, from payments to DeFi and gaming, different apps and NFTs. And I was lucky enough to come in about a year before Ordinals took off. I had about a year to build out the foundation of Xverse and focus on um, scaling different areas. Like we were already supporting NFTs on Bitcoin layer 2 with stacks. So when Ordinals came about, it only made sense for us to support them on the base layer. So it was really exciting that we were already there in the space, and that's how we were able to be fast movers and get to where we're at now. And I do plan to make Xverse a household name.
Wow, that is a very interesting story from the luxury brands into NFTs, into Bitcoin, and now with Ordinals, which is bringing NFTs into the Bitcoin main chain. It seems like a very organic transition and like a almost like a full circle. So I, I'm wanting to ask you about what are the main goals that you are pursuing at the moment with Exodus?
Sure. As head of growth specifically, I mean, my goals are always around growth, user growth, helping people discover experts, helping to reach new market segments, and then also around retention, ensuring that we have the right support systems in place where people, both in regards to community, where people feel heard and they feel listened to, we can get user feedback around the product. And then also around our support desk, our help desk as well. If somebody needs help with troubleshooting, sometimes it's just a matter of having people update the app. But onboarding, we are the first touch point in an ecosystem as a wallet. So a lot of this is around educating people, and especially Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a bit more of a clunky blockchain, less developed than others. So I think people run into a little bit more friction than they do on other chains. So it's in some ways the responsibility falls on us to educate them and onboard them. So a lot of this is around providing content, educational materials, going out mainly on Twitter, X, and our blog, and then becoming discoverable around search engine optimization, so that when people are Googling keywords like Ordinals wallet, BRC20 wallet, Xverse is coming up and people are discovering us. And then we're able to onboard them in a really smooth way because our devs are doing an outstanding, phenomenal job to create the best product possible. So I think it's just a matter of bringing the product to the people to really help onboard them. And so, yeah, we're doing a lot of events as well. We were recently at Bitcoin Amsterdam, actually just last month, feels like forever ago now. But we were at Bitcoin Amsterdam and able to connect with a lot of different partners in the space. We had a booth in the exhibition space right next to Ledger Wallet, actually, which is great as we have Ledger support for all of our assets, BRC20, Brayer Sats, and Ordinals, stacks, and Bitcoin. You can We have built-in ledger support for all of that, which is pretty cool. And yeah, so we're really it's about brand equity. We're trying to position ourselves as being the go-to Bitcoin wallet in the ecosystem and being quite advanced in that regard as well. Both advanced, as in first to support these features in a really elegant way, and also aiming to be a really user friendly onboarding experience with providing a user experience that's familiar with to other wallets and other ecosystems, bringing that user experience to Bitcoin ultimately. So that's my role at Xverse. But then bigger from a bigger perspective, we are looking to support the new metas on Bitcoin. And a lot of that is it can be a risky call because sometimes there are new protocols that come out that we think, okay, this seems not worthwhile to support. And then it can take off. And then that could be a missed opportunity on our side. So for example, BRC20 tokens, all the devs, all the influencers were all saying this is really not a good protocol for the blockchain. It's not sophisticated and ultimately it's not going to succeed. Even I was talking to Domo, who created BRC20, and he said, oh, I did it in a matter of 4 hours. This was meant as more of an experimentation. And then it just took off because people love to gamble. People love doing what they do on other chains. They love to these meme coins. Everybody's familiar with Bitcoin. So as soon as you have this functionality on Bitcoin, all of a sudden people just go berserk. And we're seeing a lot of that, especially in Asia. This is widely adopted predominantly in Asia. And it wasn't something that we initially shipped support for because ultimately we were thinking, okay, this is probably more of an experimentation. But there you go. There are other first movers to the space, and we were able to capture that audience. So I think a lot of what we have to do as a team is be really plugged into the community and listening and seeing what takes off, and then take calculated strategic decisions around what to support and ultimately consider what are the long-term benefits as well. This could be something that's temporary and then ultimately doesn't take off. How are we thinking more long-term, what's going to ultimately be widely adopted and stick around and what's worth our team investing in the long term? For example, it could be runes, it could be stacks, it could be lightning, and we need to always be eyes and ears in the ecosystem. So you'll see a lot of us, a lot of our team really trying to get as involved as possible, listen to the community and see what's happening.
All right, you touched on so many things. I think we can start double clicking on some of them. And yeah, there's a lot of places we can take this conversation, which is very exciting. So maybe we can start by the last point that you mentioned, that you said that these stuff like BRC20s, that it's almost like what we are seeing in the like meme coins that we see in other chains. And you're saying that this is attracting a lot of new users that are used to having all this stuff on other chains and now using this to bring them onto Bitcoin. And my question that I think that a lot of people have is, does this kind of thing go against the Bitcoin philosophy or like the core Bitcoin ethos? And how does Xverse, how are you thinking about this stuff? Because I think like BRC20s in particular is a very polarizing topic. Like some people think, oh, this is great, it's going to bring new users. And a bit more of maybe the Bitcoin more maxi crowd is very against them. So I just think, I'm just wondering what's the thought process that Xverse is doing and how are you making these kinds of decisions?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. I think ultimately we have to see this through the lens of you pick and choose your battles, but keep your eye on winning the war. So BRC20, this is a small, not so small anymore, but it's a battle. Will it last forever? I hope not. I hope something like runes will take off and stick more so than BRC20 because yeah, BRC20 ultimately it's not good for the blockchain. But through a bigger picture, you're winning the war. What are BRC20 bringing to Bitcoin? They're bringing more users. They're getting people to experiment on Bitcoin and start to store more of their wealth there. So the more utility we see on Bitcoin, the more value. And ultimately, we have what I've been talking about a lot this past year is we have this flywheel effect of more value on Bitcoin brings more builders and brands and institutions, creators, and ultimately investors. And when we have more investors in this space, we have more talent in this space. And then this kind of keeps snowballing into more and more Bitcoin adoption. So that's the way I see it as yes, you're absolutely right. BRC20, this is not a good token standard. It was always meant to be experimental. It wasn't good for Bitcoin, but hey, now that's brought around runes and that has yet to come, that has yet to be fully launched. I think Casey's still hammering out the standard for that and the parameters, but ultimately because there's already the users are there, the demand is there, we're going to see more kinds of activity around this. And ultimately, I think what we want to see, and I think also the shout out to the Taproot wizards, what they want to see is a demand for L2 scalability solutions, more infrastructure. Because if we want Bitcoin to survive, if we want to maybe even see Bitcoin flip Ethereum at one point, I think there's great use cases on Ethereum. I think there's a world where they're going to both be around and other chains for different use cases. But ultimately, I think we want Bitcoin to survive and thrive. We do need to find new use cases. We do need to find ways to reward the miners. And it can't just be used as gold, like a digital gold. I would also argue to say people say, what was Satoshi's vision for Bitcoin? It is a permissionless protocol at the end of the day. This is Bitcoin is permissionless. He made it permissionless. He started Bitcoin in a way that I say he because he identified it as a he for those curious. But he was talking with other community members to get their opinions as well. It wasn't like he was God and this is my perfect plan for for how Bitcoin should be used. In fact, he even put arbitrary data on the first Bitcoin block. So I think there's a lot of things to be done with Bitcoin. I think we have to experiment and just hopefully the experimentation will be a shorter period. And the good news is that a lot of experimentation has already been happening in Ethereum. And so hopefully we've had a lot of learnings there that now we can bring to Bitcoin in a more responsible way because Bitcoin is limited space. And I think we do need to respect it. We do need to treat it with the respect it deserves. And we're definitely having a lot of fun. But ultimately, we want to use it in a responsible way.
Yeah, I think that's a very balanced approach, very almost like neutral and trying not to necessarily pick a side of the fight and just see, okay, how can we use this to move Bitcoin forward? Which that tends to be my personal thoughts as well. I see a lot of the debate happening on whether we want this on Bitcoin or not, if is this good or not. And to me, a lot of times those are like they're not such important discussions. More important discussions is how can we build better protocols? How can we bring more developers on board? And how can we push Bitcoin forward? Like you said, I wouldn't like Bitcoin to just become digital gold. I think there's a lot of potential to do a lot more. And I am hoping that all of this is going to bring developers, mindshare, users, and it's going to strengthen Bitcoin in the long run. I wanna welcome Travis, who requested the mic. Travis is a community member for Sovereign, one of the leading DeFi protocols on Rootstock, the Bitcoin Layer 2. Travis, we're happy to have you again, and please share your thoughts or your questions with Elizabeth.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. So yeah, actually, I don't know if I missed it or not, but I think this is a really interesting that this wall is being built for Bitcoin. I think that's really important. And I agree 100% with what you guys are saying. And DeFi needs to be built on Bitcoin, whether that's through layer twos or on Bitcoin itself. I think it's going to ultimately end up on L2s just so we don't take up all the space on the main chain. But some of the questions I have for Elizabeth was when you guys are looking at chains and trying to decide what chains you guys are interested in onboarding, are you guys looking, how does the process work? Are you guys looking for funding from those chains? Are you looking just at metrics? Like I heard you mention you're like watching Twitter and seeing what's popping and trying to get on like a first mover advantage, it sounds, or just like being as early as possible to different chains like that are up and coming. Just curious more of the details behind that process?
Yeah, sure. We are first and foremost a Bitcoin wallet. We are fully focused, laser on Bitcoin and Bitcoin L2s. With that said, maybe you mean by other chains, maybe you mean Bitcoin L2s. Yeah. Yeah, we're looking at what from through a developer lens, what makes the most sense, where we see the most potential and where we see interesting developments occurring. Of course, we're a small team, so we can't support everything that we see that's exciting out there. And there's a lot of really interesting things being built. But we are very much involved in the the Bitcoin builder meetups, and I love that those are starting to bring in all these different chains and protocols like Sovereign and others. So this is definitely something we want to build out those partnerships and those relationships and see how we might work together. Ultimately, our focus right now, we are already supporting stacks. In fact, our founder actually helped build out Hero Wallet, which is now Leather. So Ken initially was on that team helping to build out what's now Leather. And Leather initially was focused fully on stacks. And Ken really wanted something really focused on Bitcoin, other Bitcoin metas, and also folk that had a mobile app. So that was something that he was seeking to differentiate and started Xverse. Uh, and from there, initially we were looking at Lightning because this would enable cheap and instant, cheap, super fast transactions. So that was something we were also looking at that could be really interesting for us. But our roadmap kind of got sidetracked when Ordinals came out. And of course, since we were already supporting NFTs on stacks, L2 NFTs, it only made sense for us to then bring that same support to layer one with Ordinals. And so that's why we were the first wallet to support Ordinals because we saw the value there. This is something that we already had in our roadmap of things to support. And we saw a huge demand and a huge need for that. And there was a lot of low hanging fruit in regards to really helping to build out the infrastructure for the space. So that's where we've been focusing a lot is around that protocol. With that said, I know we are definitely looking at Lightning. There's some technical setbacks. It's a tricky protocol, but we're looking at what's going to be around long term, what's going to enable and onboard more people and help people reach their goals. So we're also really excited about SBTC, which is like Bitcoin on layer two through stacks. And that's going to enable a lot of really interesting DeFi use cases as well, like borrowing and lending. So yeah, let's see. That's probably going to launch second half of next year around the happening. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, that's our approach right now. We have our priorities. We're a small team, but ultimately we'd love to support that which is really has a lot of potential for exciting developments on Bitcoin.
That was a very complete and very good answer. Travis, I don't know if you have any follow-up question or comments that you want to add.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was awesome. I guess a follow-up to that was just going back to the funding and when you guys go ahead and you choose these chains to work with, obviously, I'm assuming you guys are probably in talks with the chains and stacks and things like that. Are you guys looking for funding from that? I don't know too much about Xverse. I don't Do you guys have a token? Yeah, I guess I'm just not very educated on Xverse, so sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. We don't have a token. So that's not one of our current revenue streams. That's not something that we're focused on. But we did actually just close our round of $5 million led by Jump Crypto. And that was really exciting because we saw a lot of institutions come into the space that it was their, for a lot of them, it was their first foray to Bitcoin. It's their first time having exposure to a Bitcoin company. And a lot of now it's this when it rains, it pours. And now I think a lot of investors are really looking to get exposure to Ordinals. Ordinals bot just closed, I think it was a $1 or $2 million round of seed funding, and Taproot Wizards just closed on 7.5 million. So we're seeing a lot of funding come in, which is really wonderful, especially in a bear market. I guess we're out of a bear market at this point, but yeah, we were definitely we were funded during the bear markets, and that's not through the foundation. That we weren't looking to get funding from these kinds of protocols because ultimately we want to have We want to have the independence to construct our own roadmap and find that which makes the most sense for the ecosystem as a whole and ship accordingly. So we're not going to have any particular bias around that, but more what do we think makes sense from a developer perspective. And I'm sure our founder Ken would be able to speak much more to this. I proxy my knowledge on his engineering decisions, but yeah, that's to answer your question. Yeah, we're not going after protocols for funding as we are already funded, and really focused on the technical software developments and infrastructure support for the space.
I I think that is the best way to go about this. You maintaining independence over your own roadmap. That's the best because you will allow you to adapt to where you see things going without having to go through all the bureaucracy or having to have people that. Because I don't know if you see this as well, Elizabeth, but I sometimes feel like a lot of the different ecosystems that are emerging on top of people. We have rootstock, we have stacks, we have ICP. There's a lot of stuff happening now. And a lot of times I see these ecosystems are trying to compete against each other. And sometimes it doesn't create the best situation. I would love to see all these ecosystems collaborating more and understanding that each chain has specific characteristics that make it better for certain things than others. So we can have specialized dApps and specialized use cases in each chain. And then if we can make that more interoperable between each other and in more seamless to go from one to the other, I think that's where something like a wallet like Xverse really could help out. And in that way, I think it's going to end up being better for everyone because everyone is trying to build something that's going to bring value back to Bitcoin. And so I wish we can use that as a uniting force rather than a dividing one. I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I I think we're trying to do our best to see what's a long-term benefit for the Bitcoin ecosystem as a whole.
Yes, yes, wonderful. Travis, I don't know if you have any thoughts as well that you want to add.
Yeah, I guess another question I have would be, as you are helping to build out the wallets for Bitcoin, I could see also like this DeFi happening because that's what's being built, or a lot of it, I believe, is going to be DeFi being built on Bitcoin because I think at least most of us here believe that Bitcoin is the new money. So I guess with X versus the thought of taking these products potentially and offering those to wallet users, is this more of just a custodian type of wallet? I guess that kind of thing.
Sorry, I don't think I understood your question, but could you repeat that?
Yeah, when it comes to working with these other chains or these other products, because you guys are a wallet, you guys are offering people to hold their own, it looks like NFTs and Bitcoin and things like that.
Yeah, it's all Bitcoin. It's all Bitcoin or the only asset that's not Bitcoin, like directly on Satoshi, it is Stacks,
Hmm.
which is anchored on Bitcoin. And so those are SIP10 tokens like Stacks and Alex, and there's the City coins, but everything's Bitcoin. We don't support other chains.
Okay. I guess my question was going off of that, working with the layer twos of Bitcoin, connecting with those. If you guys in the future could see offering some of the DeFi products that those other chains, like lending, borrowing, and things like that, that we're seeing built on Bitcoin, if that's something that the wallet was looking to use, or if this is more of just a custody wallet.
Oh, sure. Yeah. We're self custodial. We would definitely be supporting in that if those protocols, and those apps, if they're integrating Xverse, then sure, people can easily connect their wallet to those apps, those DeFi apps, and lend and borrow their items. So we also have we've enabled with our Sats Connect documentation. This is a way that that wallets can easily integrate Bitcoin wallets. This is something that our team actually pioneered. For developers, predominantly is used to integrate Xverse for now. I believe we are the most integrated Bitcoin wallet actually in the entire ecosystem. I'm looking to get the statistics, which we're actively analyzing. But if you're involved in the ecosystem, and you'll see Xverse is the go-to default integrated Bitcoin wallet for all these new applications, especially when it comes to ordinals. And yeah, so definitely if people are integrating Xverse, then sure, they should be able to easily connect and do trustless trading, trustless swaps, and sign transactions. The great thing is that when we prepare the transaction signature for people to confirm, there's no code. It's all in easy to read English. It's all very human readable, so to speak. It's very transparent way to know what you're signing and to know what you're doing.
Wonderful. I agree with Travis that if we get to the stage that we can use all the lending protocols and all of that from the wallet itself, I think that will help a lot in onboarding new users and give them really interesting use cases. I personally use those lending protocols a lot. I told the story many times in the spaces before, but last month I got married and I paid for a big chunk of my wedding through a Bitcoin loan using a decentralized protocol on rootstock, and the experience was incredible. And when
Nice.
I was when I was looking for alternatives, I went first to talk with the banks and all the traditional institutions. And every time I talk with them, I realize the power of DeFi and decentralized finance on Bitcoin. I think it's going to be great for users. And wanted to touch on what you were saying, how Xverse presents everything in a clear language with no uh, developer jargon. And I think for attracting the general population, that is key. And I think Xverse is, of all the wallets that I'm testing, it's one of the best in terms of UI, UX, making it easier for users. So I just want to congratulate you on that. Travis, I am loving this question. So if you have any more, please keep them coming.
No, I'm not gonna take up the whole space, but I appreciate the answers from both you guys. Thank you.
No worries, no worries. Just a reminder for everyone. If you also have questions for Elizabeth, would be the best time. Even if it's basic questions, like I know that a lot of the people that are following our spaces come from the rootstock ecosystem, so they may not be familiar with Xverse or with stacks. So if you have questions around that, please ask them. And if not, we can continue. And Elizabeth, I want to ask you about what are the current challenges that Xverse is facing at the moment, and how you or the team thinking about facing them.
Sure. I think one challenge is we are hiring. We're actively trying to expand our team. So I'm looking for somebody to help out with content, or looking for somebody to help out with engineering, really around mitigating and being on the lookout for any security risks as we become a bigger and bigger name in the ecosystem. Of course, that poses more people will try to target our wallets. So we're always on the lookout. We have an open source code. We're regularly audited, but it's always good to have somebody fully dedicated to that as well. Our one big focus for our team right now is Asia, actually, really trying to focus on the market that is using BRC20 token. How can we reach that new audience? Because it's very different than the Western world in regards to marketing, communications. China has and Chinese culture, it's just a different beast. And we need to find ways to tap into that market in a way that resonates with that segment. We're looking at potentially hosting a big event there in Hong Kong, where we're based next year. We're also looking to hire somebody who can help us out with that community and join and host spaces on X in Chinese and on Telegram, and start to answer questions and onboard people to Xverse. Because sometimes it's just a matter of closing the communication gaps for these different markets. So I would say that's a pretty big focus for us right now. And we're also considering what new interesting protocols to support. For example, runes could be really interesting for us. Lightning is definitely on our roadmap as well. And how can we continue to build out our content roadmap and support priorities? Yeah, I would say those are probably some of the biggest focuses.
Very interesting. Well, I love that you're trying to go and look for these new users in this new market, as you call it, the Asian market. Yeah, I will say that in terms of when I go to spaces and things like that in the Bitcoin space, I do see a lot of more involvement from the Asian communities, which I think is very exciting. Bitcoin is supposed to be global money. It's going to bring hopefully the entire world together. So seeing new voices, new cultures coming into Bitcoin, I think is going to be great for the entire ecosystem at large. And I like that you're not just waiting for them to come to you, but you're going to find them and to onboard them and hopefully teach them how to self custody and do all the things right. So they can be empowered with Bitcoin like all of us. Our goal is always to get Bitcoin to as many hands as possible. Now,
Mm.
you mentioned a bunch of times runes, and I am slightly familiar with it. I imagine most of our audience is not. So, do you want to give us a little brief description of what runes is and why are you so interested in them?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to touch on runes. So basically, so as we know, BRC20 tokens came out as an experimental token standard on Bitcoin. So they're somewhat similar to ERC20 tokens on Ethereum, but it's enabling minting and transferring fungible digital currencies on the Bitcoin blockchain. Uh, but it's a bit more simple and more constrained than ERC20, just simply because Bitcoin is rather limited in regards to programmability. But ultimately, yeah, there aren't smart contracts. That's the main difference. The issue with BRC20 is that it's really not good for Bitcoin. It's congesting the blockchain and ultimately really, really a point of contention with a lot of people. Ultimately, runes is something that Casey Rodomar has come out with initially, just like in a simple blog, as he does. He was just considering, okay, what are runes and how can uh, what are BRC20 tokens? How can we find a way to not be congesting the blockchain so much and benefit the miners? Because it is good that the BRC20 tokens are bringing more use cases, but they're clogging the network. So with runes, he's created something that's like making lemonade out of lemons. So they're not clogging the network as much. They're probably function more similarly to ordinals in that way, but they also have a lot more functionalities. It's a more sophisticated standard. So with runes, there's potential to interact with L2s like Lightning, which would make them more scalable. And when we have scalability, we have less congestion of the blockchains. Now, I think the question is whether or not they're going to be adopted. It's a rather fickle market, but the good news is that with Casey's already has seen mass adoption with ordinals. So I think the odds are in his favor. Not that he is necessarily seeking runes to be widely adopted, but I think we would all be content if runes are winning over BRC20 in that regard. So yes, that's what runes are. We actually have a great blog out about runes, which
Mhm.
happy to share. Let's see. I'm just posting it in the comments here. So you can click on that blog and read up more about runes.
Perfect. Yes, please share. And if anybody is interested, they can check that out. It seems like an easy way to understand runes would be the next iteration and the better version of the BRC20s, designed by the same person that designed the ordinal protocol. So it's pretty exciting to see him working on more stuff. The ordinals have clearly caught the imagination of a wide audience and is bringing a lot of attention to Bitcoin. So hopefully he can do the same and keep bringing more developers, more mindshare, more users, because we definitely need them. Now we have a new speaker that might have a question for us. I'm gonna let you speak, but yeah, I just muted you because you were making a little bit of noise. So maybe we can try again, and if not, we can move on. Hassan, do you have a question? well, we will move on.
Yeah.
Um,
And sorry, I just a heads up, I do have a hard stop in about 10 minutes. I know we're deep into some discussions. We just wanted to let you know.
yes. Now we had have you for 1 hour, and we will make sure not to overextend ourselves. We are very mindful and appreciative of your time. So I'm just wondering what what do you s- what would you say to people as what is stacks? No, not stacks. Sorry. What is Xverse goal into trying to unite all the different Bitcoin ecosystems? Because you said that you're trying to create the wallet that people will use, the main wallet for the Bitcoin ecosystem, and that I think that's a very noble goal, something that is missing, and a huge white space that whoever claims it will have a very good place to be. So with that goal in mind, what are you thinking of the next steps, or yeah, what is the thought process into going from here to becoming that main wallet for the Bitcoin ecosystem?
Yeah. I think some of them I've touched on here, but ultimately we are we are looking to support various protocols that are happening and being developed on Bitcoin actively, not only as first movers, but also really thinking about how we can go about in a really thoughtful way to support these new apps and developments uh, in a way that's user friendly, in a way that's also ethical. We don't want to be supporting anything that's going to be detrimental to the chain or anything like this, even if there's a huge demand. We are looking to support that which is going to bring utility to Bitcoin and ultimately onboard the next billion users. Uh, and
Yeah,
I would say Xverse was created because generally the user experience for Bitcoin wallets wasn't that great. Most were optimized for engineers. For example, we had Sparrow wallet, or other Bitcoin wallets were offering like centralized. We were seeing centralized exchange wallets or multi-chain wallets, but there really wasn't a seamless way to connect to DApps uh, like you would on other blockchains. And so that's something that we wanted to provide. So that is where Xverse is unique in the market, is this ability to connect to apps and an ability to have not only easy support from as a hot wallet, but also with offline storage. So I saw somebody pinned this hardware support for Ordinals. What's really cool that just came out is that now people can even list and trade and buy their Ordinals from marketplaces with their Ledger device using Xverse. Since we have this built-in support for Ledger, now people can do this in a really safe way with their Ledger, be trading on Ordinals. Um, yeah, I would say another exciting thing that's coming up, we have Art Basel coming up. I don't know if anybody's going to be present there, but we're certainly going to be around. We're also going to be at the Sora Summit in Taiwan. So those are just the most imminent events coming up this month. Or sorry, in a couple of days, we'll be in December, flying at the speed of light here. But it's really cool to see Ordinals arriving on the scene at Art Basel. It's really a historic moment for Bitcoin. For the first time, we're going to have Bitcoin NFTs essentially at Art Basel on display. A huge convergence of the builders and artists and collectors having spotlight opportunity to speak on panels and present their work. So I'll be there, and a few others, my team members will be there. And it's really cool because I think it'll be an opportunity to position Bitcoin as a luxury chain for high-end art. A lot of people right now are associating Bitcoin ordinals with these PFPs and like meme coins with BRC20. But this is a great opportunity to showcase, because when you think about it, what is the real use case for putting art on chain? We want to track provenance here. We want to Bitcoin is backed by proof of work. So this should be the luxury chain, helping people see that and moving ordinals into the limelight as block space for fine art. I think there's this perception that they're less fine art than Ethereum, which is really the complete opposite of how they should be. So yeah, so I think it's a really cool opportunity for us coming up in the near future.
incredible. Seems like there's a lot going on and you have a ton of things on your plate and a lot of plans for the near future, which is exciting. And I'll keep an eye on all the developments. And hopefully sometime in the future, we can have you again once there's more things to announce and you have continued on this journey of becoming the dominant Bitcoin wallet. I wish you the best because we need a wallet like Xverse to take the lead on this. It's going to help a lot for user adoption, which is what every single dApp in Bitcoin needs. So just by closing, we always ask this last question, which is, if you were to meet Satoshi Nakamoto today, what question would you ask him?
Okay, so yeah, I saw you mentioned that you would ask me this question. And I was like, okay, not to be facetious, but obviously, if you don't ask Satoshi for Bitcoin, then what are you doing? Of course, I would ask him for Bitcoin, please. But in all seriousness, I'm curious as to he's a dev. He's focusing on building out the blockchain and getting some community members on. But I don't really understand why there wasn't a little bit more responsibility in regards to sharing the wealth there and on onboarding people. I think it's in a way it's too bad that Bitcoin is has this early reputation for being used for, you know, drugs and illegal black market stuff. And I think it would have been great to see Bitcoin adopted and the wealth shared by different parts of the world. I think if he had a way of, okay, we're going to disseminate this wealth, we're going to have core groups of people who are going to find ways to responsibly onboard people. I think that could have been really interesting because right now we have all these Bitcoin whales that are ultra wealthy and holding Bitcoin. And then in some cases, dumping it like Elon. And unfortunately, when we have that happen, either there's a just like disproportionate holding of this wealth that's going to be, and it already is digital gold. And I think when we see whales dumping, that just creates more volatility in the market, which creates more friction for user adoption. So I think it would have been, I'm wondering why he left before carrying out this mission of disseminating the wealth in a responsible way so that it wasn't just going to be initially adopted for questionable use cases.
Wow, I will say that nobody has. It's the first time I hear that answer and that perspective on Satoshi. But yeah, you give me a lot to think about because it is true. It would have been amazing if he had designed some system, especially all the early Bitcoins that he accumulated. It seems like with a little bit of preparation, they would have been put to a very good use for humanity because at the moment, those Bitcoins are completely stuck and they're serving no real purpose. So that we reached the 1 hour mark now, I will say thank you so much for this time. We're going to let you go. And I invite everyone that has been here live or is listening to the recording I invite you to come back next week, same time, same day, to speak with more Bitcoin builders. And let's continue to push Bitcoin forward. Thank you once again, Elizabeth.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for having me and for a great conversation today. Nice chatting with various people. Thanks, Travis, for coming up. And I know Rocky was on for a while, and Art for reaching out and connecting us. Definitely give Xverse a follow. Feel free to DM me if you have any questions. And yeah, look forward to being in touch.
All right, everyone, have an amazing day. I will see you again next week. Bye, everyone.